Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 8 and the first episode of 2020 of Your Wildlife Images Reviewed. The year has gone off to quite an exciting start. As you can see, our office colours have changed a little bit, and we've also extended our office onto the what used to be the office next door, broken the walls down, so it means a bigger office and some exciting things coming forward with regards to videos and sharing experiences with you guys. So stay tuned for that. Super excited for all of that to take place. In this episode, Andrew asked me to review some of these images with him, sent through by Laura Galbraith. Now, Laura joined Andrew in the Maasai Mara and also Amboseli towards the end of last year. Two fantastic destinations, an incredible combination if you're in East Africa and in Kenya. It really is a great combo, as you'll see from the images that Laura has put together for us. But without further ado, let's get straight into it. Here's the first episode of 2020, episode 8 of Your Wildlife Images Reviewed.
Hey Laura, thank you so much for sending these through. Johan's initial reaction was, well, what more do you want?
I think it's going to be a very short episode. Well done.
No, these are seriously fantastic. So for those of you guys who are watching either through Instagram or on the blog, Laura Galbraith joined me for our first Maasai Mara and Amboseli trip last year. Whilst we've always combined these destinations and we've helped people extend their stays to go from our Mara camp into Amboseli, this was the first time that we'd combined the two as a scheduled trip. Runs in October, is 5 nights in Amboseli and then 6 nights in the Mara. And the whole idea here is that between those two destinations, if you're wanting to have an African portfolio, which would be elephants and big cats,
Predators, yeah.
It's
best combo.
Yeah, it's hard to beat. So here are Laura's selection of images that she sent through for a constructive crit. So let's take this back into Lightroom first, and then we can get going. All right, so Amboseli, not really known for its lions.
No.
But this particular pride, they had about, I think it was 11 cubs that we counted.
Cheapers.
And this was just a moment. They were out and about. There's the palm tree thickets in the background, and this little guy just came bolting right out.
I love the action in there. You can actually see that sort of intention with the ears being forward, the eyes open, and just both those front legs up in the air and also curled back. So incredible. And I also enjoy the sort of play with the shallow depth of field where you can still see the other cub in the back, but your focus is more on this one year, which I think is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it makes for an interesting image. You know, a lot of people try and simplify by isolating, but it has balance, so it takes your eye through the frame. The one thing that I can think of, and that I've been doing quite a bit of late, so if you have a look in this background, this was only at ISO 1600, it was early morning, so the light wasn't that great, so there is a bit of grain and noise in there. Obviously now we've got our shallow depth of field, so we've got a band here which is now sharp, but what we can do is, because it's a linear adjustment, we can go and put a graduated filter over this section. You'll see that it comes from 100, fades to 50, and then to 0. And all we're going to do is, Lightroom now allows you to address noise on a localized scale. So here, we're not increasing it, we're actually increasing the noise reduction. And so what that will do is, if you have a look here, if we switch that off, you'll see that you probably won't see it on your scale, especially if you're watching this on Instagram TV. But it just softens out some of that noise there. Now, we couldn't use a radial filter, because if we did it around here, then we'd be softening what is actually in the focal plane. So it's a great technique, especially when you're shooting with primes and a shallow depth of field, where you can not only improve the image quality, but it actually enhances the overall feel of the image. But proper shot.
And I think that's a great explanation of that, is with that radial, because you often see that people do that. You know, they pull the radial filter and they either drop the clarity.
And then soft around there.
And it's soft around the edges. So just think about how your camera also sees it when you process your images, especially if you want to drop clarity and noise.
Yeah, but otherwise a fantastic image. Power. I remember this scene. Really, really special. The whole idea here was to pull back and have the clouds, the water, it was still, there was this reflection. the ripples that you've got here are actually from, if I'm not mistaken, one or two other zebra that had crossed already.
Yeah.
And they put on a show. They stood there. It just, incredible.
I know exactly. This is on the way to the airstrip on that.
Exactly.
I could spend the whole day there. It is incredible.
We saw python along the edge there, all sorts. Yellow-billed storks, no serval, hey, Laura. Anyway, great processing. I love the way with the black and white conversion, you've used the blue tones that would have been in the sky and pulled those down to try and get the sky a little bit darker. Magnificent. And all the way down to the footfall of the zebra as well, just pushing forward with a little bit of that movement.
And even that line of water behind the zebra, it's like the small sort of details that take it from a good image to exceptional. This is brilliant.
Really, really good.
I can't, I'm a little bit lost for words here. There's not much we can change here. It's beautiful. That
was pretty much my reaction when we were photographing this scene, and we saw what was happening, and this was a really magical moment. Laura, you've done really well to tame some of these highlights in this area. I'm sure you've done this already, just for the viewers. One of the things that I like to do when we work these highlight areas is just to, you obviously can't do stuff like that, so you can't just drop the highlights. But things like dropping the clarity a little bit and a negative dehaze even can help to soften that a little bit. Yeah. There was just no ways from a dynamic range perspective to capture all of the detail in the shadows plus tame those highlights. There's no ways to do it. But I think that this has come together really, really nicely. Fantastic storytelling image, and I'm certain that you've got a black and white conversion of this as well, because it's also not the worst.
Power.
Yeah, but a fantastic. I mean, how iconic for a African sunrise.
That's absolutely beautiful. I think if anything, if you had to now really look for something super critical, if you had maybe those egrets on top.
Don't go there, yeah.
Those egrets on top, the sideways profile, side-on profile. And maybe the one on the right, just to also be on top, so you can get the whole body.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's wildlife,
That's it.
From what you had, I don't think you could have photographed the scene any better.
No. And to be perfectly honest, I mean, we looked on the back of cameras afterwards. I was like, let's see what you got. It was, and that's what it's about, is getting it right in camera. So well done. Again, lovely, different representation of the scene. Enough detail in these shadow areas just to show the detail in the trunk and in the tusk. Framing on the right, so this is a big thing, not having more light on the other side of this leg so that we go here. If we had that, then we would have bounced around. Little egret stuck in the background there. Colors are fantastic and natural as it was. Anyone who's been to Amboseli will know that this is a typical Amboseli sunrise.
Absolutely. Again, thinking out the box and brilliant, really, really good.
Yeah. Magic, absolutely magic. And anyone who's watching on Instagram, go and pull this up on as big a TV as you possibly can, because these sort of images need to be seen at scale to be appreciated. I love the contrast on the edge of the front of the trunk, that little bit of the shadow there with the directionality of the light, the big skies, the taking rule of thirds to another level and even making it a third of the bottom third. Absolutely. Because the sky is so dominating and so appealing.
And what I really enjoy about it, I mean, just from a few photos that we've seen already, is the diversity that you've created. So often on safari, people are too scared. You either go in too close or you go too wide. Where here you've really sort of challenged yourself. A lot of the people, I would wonder how many people would have gone this route if you didn't have Andrew's guidance, you see.
Thank you.
But really, really well done. Stepping out of your comfort zone. This is not easy to do, and it's against a lot of people's sort of
intuition.
Intuition. So
the previous shot was 500 mils. This one's 120.
Brilliant.
So working different focal lengths to tell more of a story. Which, when you have a 500 mil F4, it's very difficult to pull yourself away from it. But you've done, this is great.
And again, Amboseli is the kind of destination where you do want to shoot wide like that, especially at that lake bed.
This is a special part of the park. For those of you who don't know, you can get out, get down nice and low. It's not always that you will get ellies coming across there, but when you do, it's magic. Stunning. Again, the whites and the highlights here have been tamed very well. Beautiful. If anything for me on this one, in your hue, saturation, and luminance, I would potentially look at making the yellows just a touch more orange. So what this will do is it changes the tonality of a particular color range. So to make those yellows just a little bit more orange, you see we could go that way to make them green, which we certainly don't want. But just a subtle change like that. So if we switch that adjustment off, you see it just becomes a little less yellow, a bit more orange. And for me, it just blends a little bit better. But a great crop, fantastic morning, just so peaceful, beautiful, quintessential Amboseli.
Yeah, brilliant.
Something that I do also like, Laura, is the way that you've thought about where you've placed your logo in the image, so as not to detract from things. So well done there as well.
Beautiful. Love those rich colors. And also the detail that you've got in the trunk of that, the ellie in the front there. You've got the sort of dried mud and on the trunk, the textures there is beautiful. And then again, just playing with the depth of field, just enough that you can, there's a bit of detail in the ellies in the back there as well.
So the big thing here, and what I've learned so much from Amboseli, what I've taken over the years of traveling to Amboseli, is light. I've learned so much about light. So this is a typical Amboseli scene. Clouds have built up. I mean, I don't think we can pull up what time this was, but it was late morning. You can see the light is not the best, but clouds build up, but there's always a window of opportunity, and there's always changing lights. So it just so happened that this herd was walking towards us, and you can see it's dodging and burning by Mother Nature. You've got a darker background, obviously the foot slopes of Kilimanjaro in the background, in the shade. The rest of the herd in the background are kind of in shade, but this cow is literally in the spotlight. So when we shot this, we would have underexposed a little bit just to retain some of that. And that's why if you close your eyes and you open, you go straight to this cow. Yeah. Then as a combination of the shadows as well as depth of field, you're taken on a journey towards the back. Yeah. So it's magic. And I know that this was very little editing. This was a little bit of sharpening, a little bit of contrast, saturation.
Getting it right in camera.
Getting it right in camera, yeah. Fantastic. Really, really cool.
Again, beautiful. And for me, what makes this, and like Andrew mentioned at the lake bed, sometimes you can get out, is the low angle that you've created here. Is by lying down on the ground. That just gives it a different look, different feel. Beautiful. You can see a bit of that heat haze.
A bit.
In this particular case, it doesn't bother me.
It adds to it for me. And I agree with you 100%. So again, this is speaking to your comment about focal length. This is that same sort of scene, probably the same bull, if I'm not mistaken, at 500 mils.
Yeah.
And it's a completely different story. And I'm glad that you've captured both of them. So for those of you who are not quite following along, you'll see around here that there is a lot of heat haze. Yet the ellie gets progressively sharper as we get higher up. And that's literally just the heat coming up off of that lake bed, bending and twisting the light rays as we're shooting through them. So it gives you that mirage effect, which to me adds to the story. I do want to check the angle here. It feels like there's maybe a slight adjustment that we could make there. I'm literally nitpicking here, Laura.
Trying to find a fault.
To something like that.
Yeah.
But again, really, really good and a fantastic storytelling image. A little bit of banded cloud across the top. Using a cropping ratio, this must be 16:9 if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Using a cropping ratio to emphasize the width of the scene, whereas in the previous one we actually wanted a lot more height.
Yeah.
So very well processed again.
And again, attention to detail. I'm sure there must have been a sequence, but the one you've chosen with that front leg, sort of curled around, showing that movement, very, very well done, and super image.
I'm going to start checking for dust spots so we can find something. Again, 135 mils. Again, using the change in focal length. This one for me as well also feels a bit of an angle going on here. I would take it to there. So all we did is just open up the cropping tool, took our spirit level, take it from one side of what we feel is straight in the image to the other, and let it do its thing. Lovely detail in these ellies, soft in the foreground. Sky, I'm going to find if there's any dust spots.
I don't think there are enough clouds.
Damn it. Just a great moment. 3. so groups of 3. This was a herd that was coming across. So when you've got multiple subjects, it can be quite difficult to choose one. And what happens with footfalls? Who do you follow? Follow the lead cow. Try and break away a group of 3. So there may have been another 4 or another 1 even just off to the right here. However, 3 work. Yeah. To get 2 footfalls, and the one that doesn't have a correct footfall has a trunk up.
Yeah. And then the other one's
just showing off. I like this as well. One comment for me would be because this is, it's not quite a traditional high key where you've lost all the detail. You know, some people may have wanted to drop a grad filter, darken this, darken that, so that your eye goes. But I like this canvas. Looking at the histogram, I feel like we could add in a bit more into the blacks. Yes. And what that'll do, because we want to draw the viewer's eye through contrast here, we've already got this darker subject, which is the only black thing in this frame. If we come to our tone curve and we take our darks and shadows, and maybe even looking again at the histogram, it's still telling me, if you look on this left-hand side, that we've got some wiggle room to get pure black here. So that's just about where we want to be. So if I do a before and after, so he's gone from being this not quite washed out, but he's there, but whereas now if you close your eyes and you open them and you go straight onto that. And the reason that it works so well is because those tusks are against his body and not against the sky. Yeah. So immediately there's contrast against those two. I love this image. I think it's clean and simple, and I want to find dust spots, but I'm doubting that I can.
I would have liked to see more with the whites going completely white. For me, the clouds almost, you can see that they're there, but there's not a lot of detail in them. So I would have maybe, sort of go
a bit more punchy.
Go a bit more punchy. Really sort of be aggressive with those whites, even with the lights, or even like exposure as a whole, maybe even. Just as something a bit different. Again, it comes down to personal preference. I prefer that again, but I suppose it's all personal preference and what you enjoy.
But again, a lovely shot. Big guy, open. The story here is this is vast. What does he feed on? It looks like a barren desert landscape, and that's the thing. Amboseli is a small park, but it's a hell of a diversity. We've had zebra in water, which looks like a lake. We've had an elephant on a dry lake bed. We've had an elephant in a dust bowl. Yeah. And we've had lions and palms. So
was that sort of midday?
Yes, late morning. Yeah.
So again, it's also thinking out the box that you've gone with that high key. Maybe next time when you're faced with that opportunity again, try and overexpose a bit more in camera and really try and get those whites blown out. Because your elephant is so nice and dark, he'll still stand out.
Yeah. So now we're switching gears to the Mara. This was our first afternoon in the Mara. Literally came across these guys very close to camp. And it was a moment as they were starting to get a bit more active and shuffle around. We positioned ourselves, they were lying in a drainage system, so we were shooting down onto them.
Oh, wow.
But that meant that the background was quite a far away behind them. And for a long time, the youngsters were plopped down. We could just see this female. And we positioned so that when they came, we would get this. I couldn't have scripted this. I didn't expect that, but I had a feeling that this was going to be our best window. Yeah. So really good. Increasing depth of field to f8. You've got multiple subjects. Whilst they're in a very similar focal plane, you don't want to throw it off. No. But again, well processed. I'm looking for dust spots, and all I'm going to find are flies, I have a feeling. Let's see. Yeah, those two little spots over there, those are flies, and so is that one. So I'm gonna catch you one day, Laura. But a great shot. That's lovely beautiful. Interaction, which is always what we want.
Absolutely. And again, 3.
Yeah.
Works well.
Your thoughts on this?
It's very different. I love it. It's not your typical giraffe image, especially for the Mara, but I love that green background. You've underexposed it beautifully just to keep enough detail in your giraffe as well. I would maybe possibly look at just lighting that giraffe up a little bit.
So we won't be able to do it with the color channels here now, but you could do that easily with the yellows and oranges.
Yes, in your color.
Because this is all green in the color normally. But if we just went and lifted contrast in the whites and maybe try and achieve a similar effect with a brush over here, hey?
Yeah.
So you're thinking just to increase the contrast of the bridge of the nose against that bush. And then what you could also do to enhance that contrast would be to then go, and this is very crude, just to go along the edge of the tree in the background here and go the opposite way and to just drop that a little bit. So in essence, what we've done is just enhanced that contrast between the two. Is that what you were looking at?
Exactly.
I would agree with that. I mean, it's a minor adjustment, but it does make a stronger statement.
Absolutely. But love that.
But again, not the Mara, hey?
No, definitely not. Just another, do you remember which area this was in? Was that the
BBC Laga.
Oh, BBC.
Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful. Oh, man.
Three's a crowd.
Yeah. That is gorgeous.
This was a tricky sighting. I mean, they were tucked around the bush. These guys are still little dinky tots. I think you were the very first one to see them on drive.
Really?
But further up,
up
that drainage line. So again, we were fairly close. To try and get them all in focus is never going to happen. So this was 700 mils with a converter onto the 500 now, and wide open. And just the moment where you can start to see all of these things. This wouldn't have worked as well if we couldn't see that third cub's eye in the background. So for me, it's such a great storytelling image.
Yeah.
Really well processed. Love the detail in the foreground. Just a magic moment.
Absolutely. I'm not sure if you cropped this in at all or not, but there's no sort of distracting elements. You're so focused on the cup, and it's often hard, especially when you're going into those drainage lines. There's often like a bit of a twig coming out of the back, or a light part that just catches your eye and draws your attention away from your subject. This is nice and clean. Again, nice green vegetation. After the good rains in the Mara, just makes them stand out, and such a strong image.
I think speaking to that difficulty as well is that these guys, and they were trying to tuck themselves in as deep as possible. So it was a tiny window, and again our guys did very well to position as well. So
sure,
awesome moment. And then this is a tricky one because I think that this is more of an optical illusion than anything else, because this part of the Mara does slope, and the Mara does this. It catches me every single year. Yeah. It plays tricks on your mind as to what is straight and not. But I do feel that in this instance we could probably get away with a slightly more. I'm not using this as the horizon line, but I'm reducing that slope, if that makes sense. Whether it's factually correct or not, visually it seems to be a little bit better for me. But a great moment. Shutter speed was up, 105 mils again, using a bit of diversity. We've gone from 700 mils to 105 mils. A vulture as the kicker, a jackal in the background. The story, the pose, the question is, what was he chasing?
Yeah.
Looking at that eye contact, what would you have said?
Well, probably a vulture, I'd say.
Exactly, because he's kind of looking up a little bit.
Or a kite.
That's it, or a kite. So, a great shot. Love the story in a frame like this. I'm not even going to look for dust spots because I know the answer.
Also love that mane sort of
He's
being
beautiful.
blown back.
This guy is beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's great to see a male lion doing something other than sleep.
Exactly.
So the beauty of, like you said, the mane is actually in display because he's moving. It's been pushed back, and there's that sense of movement in the mane, in the paw position, the tail. There's aggression. It's all here. And
also, you did very well with your exposure as well. I mean, it might sound like a obvious comment, but often, like late mornings, especially in that open grassland, you get a lot of highlights and things. So you've done well to expose and process this particular image.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah, it's just wow.
So this was a fleeting moment. Again, I think 7,000 mils. So with the 2x converter on, but you should never use a 2x converter.
No, you lose detail.
Yeah. Guys, trust me, when you shoot with purpose with these converters, and it has to be good light, which this is, you open up a whole new world. So don't be afraid to use it, just know when to use it, I guess, is the comment. Well cropped, because I know there was a lot going on in the scene. There were lots of lions, there was lots of grass, they've obviously got a buffalo kill here. So well cropped, 16:9 again, probably to eliminate some distracting elements, but also to show the width. two faces up in the top, only eye contact coming from the one subject, beautiful spotlight on the youngster, and enough of a hint to tell you that it's a buffalo, but not with its guts hanging all over the shot, which is difficult. And that's, we went back, this was the morning after we'd found them the previous day where they'd hardly eaten. It was great, you've got an intact buffalo, good opportunities. The next morning I was thinking, this is gonna be messy. But we've got a great opportunity with these ones. I really love this. The catch light in the eye, the little ear position, sneaking under mom's belly. Fantastic
story. Just a bit of colour on the nose and the mouth of the little cub as well. So you know what's happened, but like I say, without the intestines hanging out and all sorts.
If anything, I wouldn't even go and remove these, but what you could do, just exploring the edge of the frame, looking for potentially distracting elements. These little grass stalks over here, for overlay to see that we've selected them, and I know I'm doing this in a very crude manner, but just pulling down the highlights, maybe exposure a little bit, and whites, we end up with that. It just changes it just a touch, but a fantastic shot. Really, really cool.
Love it. And again, we talk about diversity. We've gone color, we've gone black and white, and now this, I forgot the name, sepia, that's it. Really, really cool. Again, playing with shallow depth of field, you can still see that Ellie in the background. Beautiful. Beautifully done.
Yeah, really, really nice, with a bit of detail in the sky still. This was also mid-morning, you can see the direction of the light. It's right onto the rump, onto the back and the shoulders. The shadows are being cast down. But you shouldn't really photograph in the middle of the day, should you? No.
Go back to camp.
Exactly. So this works really well. Heat haze in the background, adding to the kind of the mood of the scene. Lovely shallow depth of field to create this soft foreground, sharp subject, and then getting progressively softer. I love the balance of the story. Again, not isolating just one. That elephant in the background adds something new to the frame. And it's also about there's a lot to think about with this. It's separation. If this elephant is walking towards the other one, you don't want them to be too close. You want enough separation that it's there. Exactly. Then it's ear positions of the one in the background, trunk positions of this one. There's so much to think about once you've got multiple subjects, but this is worked beautiful. Really well.
No, that is stunning. Actually make a nice canvas print, that.
Yes, very nice. I like this. Yeah. Coming back to, it's adding the next level to what we were talking about. So now not only do you have subjects in the background, which are rendered soft through your clever use of depth of field and focal length, but you've now got something in the foreground as well. Yeah. So it just really well processed, really well thought out shot, and well weighted shot, because I was there for this. We waited for a while for things to line up, but again, there wasn't much else happening around on this morning. Why just drive past when you can spend a bit of time?
It's such photogenic animal.
Yeah, lovely detail in this little zebra foal. Shallow depth of field again to blur that background. For me, this is great. And something to think about maybe for future, Laura, is, I think we tried this there as well, but intentionally just throwing your focus off. So not even having these guys in. Picture this as an image, because the zebra, it's far more abstract and arty, I know, but the stripes of the zebra are there to supposedly create chaos and dazzle and confuse. Okay. So intentionally throwing the focus out manually on your lens to create something like this is nice. It works even more so in this because you've anchored it with these two in the front.
And once again, not your typical zebra photo.
No,
it's thinking outside the box a little bit, and love the result. And again,
textures and patterns, same sighting, spending a bit of time, really well worked. And again, so this is something here. A lot of people forget about depth of field in these sort of scenes. So 500 mils, obviously this was very close. F11, you can see this part here. This is obviously where the body then takes a bit of a turn away. Tack sharp in here, sharp and detail in here, and then soft over there at F11.
Yeah.
Okay, so many people, you get the stock standard shot of the elephant texture or the eye, I'm going to go in tight. And you forget to use a greater depth of field. Because your subject is closer and you've zoomed in, your resultant depth of field is shallower. So F11 increase that works well here.
I think, like Andrew was saying, I think it just visually it just makes it more interesting that now there's depth across the whole scene. If you had to shoot this at 5.6, for example, and you're focusing on the zebra, with that size of the other zebra being out of focus, it won't be as interesting.
So yeah, there's the tension
like
where now you can see this is sharp and it's there. With at 5.6, it would have been, well, it's there, but it's not sharp. Was that intentional?
Yeah.
Exactly. Only thing for me as a little crit would be to look at the cropping here with this bit of white stripe on the edge of the frame and this black that comes in. So if we can, I would end it on a dark stripe. It's the smallest little detail, but something that I've got into a habit of doing now is exploring the edges of my frame with every crop and composition, but with every crop. So just to expand on that, what we had was this. So because there's white and dark on the edge of the frame, I see it as a bit of contrast, and my eye is drawn there. Whereas there, it's just a bit cleaner, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Wow. You shouldn't photograph in the rain either.
No, if it's raining, you go back to camp.
This is brilliant. And this is actually not easy to do. Hey? I mean, I don't know if you guys had it on this particular occasion, but often you struggle to focus when you've got that heavy rain.
Yeah.
So I'd love to know, in this particular case, did you guys manual focus or did you just sort of stay with it?
We were manually focusing. Also, you can see it is bucketing down with rain. So we got wet. We still survived, the camera survived. The biggest challenge here was to find something to make it interesting. Yeah. Because these, in order to get this rendered, you can't have sky in your backdrop, so you need a uniform background. So we've got the back of a little hillock in the background. Yeah. That works. Take the tree out, and you've just got two lines, and it's not quite as interesting. Yeah. But what that tree does, and what this other line is in the background does, is it takes you on a journey from the foreground to the midground to the background, so it adds depth, and the positioning of the tree, it all came together. But again, it's not comfortable. You get a bit wet. You're scrounging around, and you might have to really creep to get the right angle. But paid off in this instance. A really cool shot.
Again, also thinking outside the box, I think a lot of the people would have maybe focused on the wildebeest with the shallow depth of field, and then have the cheetah in the background, flipping it around and focusing on the subject that's further away and blurring out the foreground. Really, really cool. And there's enough depth there that you can tell what they are.
Yeah. One little suggestion here for me would be, and I'm not too sure how much of a crop this is already, Laura, but so cropping in and just straightening a little bit, not quite to there, but looking at those cheetah's eyes, maybe somewhere there. So what I've done with the crop is I've now eliminated this guy on the side here and this horn over here. And now, coming back to our three, we have almost like a tiered effect as well, because they're first place, second place, third, whatever the case. But let's take the rest of that horn out as well to there. Yeah. It just feels like a stronger image. It's still very suggestive, and you think, well, what happened next?
Yeah, that's amazing.
So if we just go back and we reset that crop, you'll see that you've got the rump of this one coming in. So if you crop to remove that, now you've still got three heads, and then there's this patch of white, which is not quite uniform in this foreground. So we go here to the cheetah, but then you come down to this. Whereas now, so if I cut that wildebeest out there, it's good, but I've still got that little bit of the beard coming through, so let's remove the beard. Now I've got a little bit of the base of the horn. Let's cut that horn out completely, and let's leave it there. Yeah. That, for me, is where we crop it off. But a great storytelling image, not just your documentary shot. And difficult, because it's the slightest window of opportunity. So very well done. And that's it. What a great collection. This is, I think most people would be pretty happy with a collection like this.
100%.
11 nights, so 5 nights in Amboseli, 6 nights in the Mara. Yeah. It's a pretty diverse portfolio, and I know that there's a lot more images, and Laura had to work quite hard to cull these down. But yeah, fantastic collection of images, Laura, and thank you again for joining us, and thank you for being so open to having Johan and I give you some constructive feedback on what is a great collection.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think three things that that we've taken away from this, and also for you guys watching, is play around with your focal lengths. Don't be afraid to shoot wider, to go in closer, to create different images. Time of the day, don't just shoot during that golden hour. Challenge yourself midday. Try and do some high key stuff. And then also sort of different times of the year. Try and go in a rainy season. That's when you're going to get those rainy images, obviously. If you go dry season, chances of rain is very slim. So create those kind of images and just challenge yourself a little bit. Laura, very, very well done. And guys, please go give Laura a follow down at the bottom here on Instagram. I think it's a fantastic gallery and very, very well done.
You're going to be doing more in this series, eh?
I am. Thank you so much for you guys for sending it through. It's been a bit of a chaotic start to the year with the office and everything. But we'll definitely be rolling out a few episodes over the next coming weeks. And just to remind you guys, if you'd like some of your images featured in one of the episodes, send them through to us. Our emails are down at the bottom here, and we would love to include them in future episodes.
Thanks again, and well done, Laura. Great collection.
Well done. Cheers, guys.
Ciao.